Welcome to the Mindset Meets Money podcast, where money makes sense. We provide tactical advice to help high-income earners make logical decisions with their money.
What is our bias that we're talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about confirmation bias.
All right, give me more details.
Okay. So confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports one's prior beliefs.
All right, say that in English.
In English,
like you
okay.
just read the definition.
I did just
that I'm
read.
a doctor
I did just
and all
totally
that.
just read the definition.
Yeah.
I didn't memorize it. That's my fault. So confirmation bias, in practice, what this is, people will look back. They'll. It's "I told you so" bias, right?
Yeah.
So people will not call an event before the event happens. Then the event happens, and they'll say, "See, I told you that happened, and that was going to happen." And they'll look back to try to find things that would have supported their belief.
So I've been around a ton of people that'll do "I told you so," and they're like, I knew if X got elected, the market was going to do this, or I told you crypto was going to go down and NFTs were BS, or we knew Tesla that Elon couldn't be able to do that. So people will make comments like that afterwards, but I don't understand how that affects your decision making when you're making an investment. So our listeners are sitting here going, all right, I want to be aware of how I think and how I feel and how I behave so I don't make poor decisions with choosing my investments. How does confirmation bias deal with that? And what should we be looking for as an investor?
So let's look at, and this is not a political discussion whatsoever, but let's look at the last two political regimes in the country, right?
Yep. You
had the Trump administration, you have the Biden administration currently. Okay?
Oh, man, you got people already feeling emotions right now on the other side as soon as you even said it.
I know, myself included.
Yeah.
So but let's, in every single presidential changeover, right? You switch from one party to the next. There's a swath of humanity that turns and says the market's going to drop because X got elected, right? Happened when Trump got elected. Happened when Biden got elected. Okay?
Yep.
Now, in hindsight, you had a bunch of people who said, Trump got elected. I'm pulling my money out of the market. I think he's going to be a disaster. And the market actually did quite well under him. I don't attribute any benefit to the situation. People did the exact same thing. Biden gets elected and they say, I'm pulling my money out of the market because Biden got elected, right? Now, where this becomes detrimental is the truth of it. The president has relatively little control over what happens in the stock market, right?
Yeah.
But for those people who now go back, because the market has declined a little bit in the last year while Biden has been president, they're going to say, see, I told you so. And so now that poisons them for their next decision, because this gives them confidence that they were able to find that they had the right judgment when it was totally a toss-up.
So it's just a fake confidence level.
Correct.
So it's a matter of you think you're better at you are than investing because you're actually not remembering what you were saying back then.
Right.
So is it typically that you're just recalling differently on it, or is it that you said it, you didn't do anything about it, and then you're confirming that you were right?
Well, it's hindsight's 20/20, right?
Right.
And so take it out of the investing world for a second. So I've got because this happens in all aspects of life, right? All these biases you can put in the investing world, the financial world, or you can take it out in regular retail, or just normal life. I got a buddy from college who is absolutely head over heels in love with this one girl. She's a very nice girl, so she's polite to him. She responds to his text messages, but she has zero interest in him.
Yeah.
And he will go back and say, he will look for confirmation of his belief that she is into him by looking back and saying, see, look, she said this or she said that.
Yeah.
And it poisons his next steps forward because he's got no shot and he's clinging to every nice thing this poor girl does because she's just a nice person. And so it poisons his next steps.
Has he always had bad luck with girls and just believes that they all
No, in this particular instance, he's just down the rabbit hole. It's just there's no help for him on this one.
Good deal. So he's actually going back and reading text beforehand saying that is that's confirming she's into him, but it's not true.
Correct. And so bringing it back to the investing world, right?
Yeah, this is a unique analogy for you to go to here.
I used that one in class the other day, and it's like over the head of half the people I talk to. But
I think you just like busting your buddy's chops on this more
fair.
than
very fair. Poor guy doesn't even know what's happening.
Yeah.
So bring it back to the investing world. So again, it's looking backward in actions that happened after the fact and using those as confirmation that your decision was the right decision, right? Now, we all know market timing doesn't work, right? If you attempt to time, I always tell people, if I ever tell you that we're going to time the market, you need to fire me as your advisor and run away from me, right? So many studies show that it's an impossible game.
Yeah, you might get it right a couple times, but it's straight luck on that part. It's not that you're doing it correctly. There's that book, The Psychology of Money, and they gave the example of a guy. It was actually really interesting. So during the Great Depression, and when was it 1927 when the market took it?
Yeah.
So he was coming home, and his wife and his mother-in-law thought that he lost everything, and they're like, this is when people were jumping out windows, people were just disappearing on Wall Street. And came home, and he started to hear his wife talk about how she was worried, are you okay? And the mother-in-law's hiding in the other room. And he realized, they're scared that something happened. He goes, no, this was the best day in the market ever. I shorted the market during this time. We're richer than we ever were. We're doing great at this point. Now, he believed he was really good at that point. Fast forward 2 years later, the guy lost everything on some bad bets. He did disappear and ended up committing suicide afterwards. And that. So, it's one of those times where you can get it right, but it's going to be very hard to time the market on a consistent, regular basis all the time.
And then what it does is it creates an overconfidence in your ability, and you go and you get crushed eventually, right? And then we talked about this in a previous
it's like
podcast.
when you're gambling. It's like, you start winning more and more and more, and you make bigger bets. You should, and then my father taught me that my father should be teaching me about gambling. But he always said, whatever you go up by, whatever percentage you're putting in, say if you're doing $100 at a time, make sure you're going down $100 at a time. You're not making those bigger bets, the $1,000, $2,000, just because you have a bigger pile of money. Now, I've never been able to follow that at all.
It's a whole different discussion to have.
Is this another bias?
We'll save that. No, that's just I got to teach you how to gamble. We'll do that. We'll do that.
I don't want to know how to gamble at all. I've done all right in my life without gambling, so I'm not going to go about it.
We'll do that on a different one. Maybe we won't film that one. But so the issue.
Gamble with your money though.
No, I'm going to gamble with your money. I'm going to show you how to do it with your money. We'll go to the Hard Rock. I'll gamble with your money. So the way to do this, the way to kind of not fall prey to this is to realize that our base instincts. Right. First of all, you got to harness your base instincts in a lot of these instances, right? Your emotionally driven base instincts, right? I feel the market will do. Remember we talked about when you're using I feel or I think language. So I feel the market's going to do this. Okay, right then and there, you got to take a deep breath. You got to slow down. But more importantly, if you would have been right, I feel the market's going to go down because Joe Biden got elected. It has nothing to do with it. But the market did decline recently, and Biden happens to be the president. In order to not fall prey to now force yourself into bad decisions based off of that, you cannot look back and say, see, look, I would have been right. Or see this, I told you here, I told you so. The second you're saying I told you so, you made a mistake.
So the key part is you're making decisions in the future of how you're managing your money and where you're putting your money there. You don't want to make those decisions based on past bets because you felt like you did a good past bet beforehand, whether you did or you didn't, or in hindsight you believe you missed this because I know I should have bought that stock. Right. I told you should have bought that stock and it went up.
Right.
And now you feel like you should buy because this time because you have a confidence that you've made some good decisions beforehand.
Right.
In hindsight, which you might not have.
Right.
And so that part where making decisions based on the future should be based on the facts with the investment that you're investing in, based on the existing economic situation and environment. And you're making a decision based on what you believe the future is going to be or your diversified portfolio that you're building, and not based on past events on it.
Right.
Is that basically what you're saying?
Completely. You make a good bet in the past doesn't mean that you're skilled. I mean, potentially you just got lucky.
Yeah.
You called something that happened and you didn't take action on it. Now you go on tilt and you're making emotionally charged decisions going forward. You got to cut that off.
Makes sense to me. So if you're an investor at this point and you just heard this side, is it back to the I feel things you're looking for? Is there any other indicators that you can see yourself using that confirmation bias and it's affecting you?
Whenever you look backwards, right? You're looking backwards to try to prove your thesis, right? That's immediately you're going to fall prey to this. Okay, and so Decisions are made, and you have to be comfortable with the decision and then move forward with it.
So talk me through this, because there's a lot of economists will say, the last time that the environment had these indicators, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different than what you're saying here with confirmation bias looking in the past, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, last time interest rates were going up, here's how bonds reacted and stocks reacted with going through it. And you're using fact paths and patterns that you've seen in the past to be able to indicate it, which honestly a lot of traders do and a lot of investors do, and they do successfully by being able to look in the past and that. Okay. But now we're saying don't look in the past.
No.
Where's the difference?
Did you hear what you said there, though? Fact, right? You weren't stating feelings. You weren't stating I thinks. You weren't stating emotions. You were stating fact. Last time interest rates did this, bonds did that. Okay? Yeah. If it is a factual representation, looking back in history to give you a better guidance to what you should do in the future is exactly what you should be doing. Yep. Right? It's more along the I feel the market will go down because Biden got elected. I feel the market will go down because Trump got elected. And then whatever happens, and then you're looking back to say, see, I told you so.
Right.
Okay?
So if you took that same set and, every time a Democrat is, we'll just stick with this analogy, and I know it's probably a polarizing analogy to stick with, but every time a Democrat's elected, here's what typically happens in the next 4 years. Is that's a fact-based piece because you can go back and do it. Mm-hmm. Would that be confirmation bias at that point? And you should watch it, or you should not even consider that that fact pattern in your decision making.
So right what you said there is it's two very different things, right? So it's the truth of it is, doesn't matter who's in office, the market goes up typically over long periods of time. Yep. There's a great study that shows
the average recession or the average down market is 18 months. So you're going to, in general, have an up market over 4 years.
Right, but there's a great study that goes back. Capital investors do this, where they go back and they show here's what the market did under each president's terms, right? And it's pretty even Republican and Democrat. It goes up, right? So it doesn't matter. So what the comment you made there was half emotion. So and so party gets in office and this happens. Yep. And in truth, you're not using the fact pattern that actually happens, right? Yep. And so whenever you're using an emotional based look back, that's when things are not valid.
Gotcha.
Right? If you can go back and say, like what you said earlier, last time interest rates did this, bonds did that. Yep. That is factual. You can prove it. It's right then and there. Yep. That you can work forward, and that's not confirmation bias because you're not looking to find why you were right. You're using fact patterns to prove why you're right.
Totally makes sense. All right. Another great episode. Hopefully everybody got the same out of it afterwards. So if I'm sitting here in an investor's shoes, what I'd be thinking to myself is if I'm saying I feel, I think, or I look back and I knew this was going to happen. As soon as I'm saying that, that's where I'm going to not make another decision based on those comments for my next investment. And if I'm going to look back in the past to confirm my next investment's good, I want it to be a factual set of events that's allowing me to make that decision in the future. And it shouldn't just make me make the decision. They should be data points in me saying, okay, here's some data points here. Now, based on what the environment's doing here and where I think this company, mutual fund, investment trust, whatever it is, this could be a good investment at that point. Would you say that's pretty accurate what I said?
Exactly. Perfect.
Awesome. Good episode, dude.
Subscribe on your favorite streaming platform if you haven't already, and don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and family.